Greta Thunberg becomes Time's Person of the Year.
How dare you?
What? I didn't do it. I'm just reporting on it. On one hand, I don't get this. On the other hand, I get it completely. First of all, she has become now the poster child when it comes to the voice and the face of why young people matter in this discussion on climate change. And the left feels that they have got the individual that not only garners sympathy because she has some personal issues, but she's at an age where you really can't criticize her or you're being seen as a bully and you're mean. And yet, at the same time, there is just some glaring hypocrisies here. For example, when she came to the United States to give her address to the United Nations, she was brought over here on a solar-powered yacht. I'll let that sink in for a moment. A solar-powered yacht. She wouldn't fly because obviously the toxins of the jet fuel are killing the environment, and therefore she was not going to be guilty of that. So she came over on a solar-powered yacht. We have a term for that. It's right on the tip of my tongue. Oh yeah, sailboat. What was the Nina, the Pinta, the Santa Maria, and the Mayflower? Can we call those solar-powered yachts now? So she comes over here on a solar-powered yacht, and her crew that brought her here couldn't take her on to Spain. They were busy doing something else, so they got on planes and flew back to where the solar-powered yacht originated from, and then another crew got on planes and flew to New York to take Greta on the solar-powered yacht to the next location she had. Now get this straight. This 16-year-old kid, in making her statement for the environment, would not get on a plane and contribute to the carbon footprint. No, instead, 10 more footprints were created because crews flying back and forth to sail her around the world on her solar-powered yacht, which of course took weeks of journeying to get here. See, on the one hand, this is laughable, but you can't make fun of it. You can't make fun of it because YouTube has rules about stuff like this now. And you can't make fun of it because, again, she is a kid. And by the way, I'm making light of this to keep from being angry. And not angry at her. She is a kid. And she only knows what she has been spoon-fed and told and taught as fact over fantasy in the social left propaganda on all of this stuff regarding climate change. And again, this issue isn't even really for me about climate change. It is about the fact that she is a young lady with Asperger's. She has disclosed that. She has admitted that. And by the way, as a former school administrator, I had several young people in my schools that had Asperger's, and they were in drama club, they participated in sports, they were gifted in so many ways in so many areas. So I don't consider that in any way for her to be a handicap. She likes to think of it as her superpower. Go for it. If she is able to do productive things with her life, that is thumbs up, awesome, outstanding. And I think that's one reason why a lot of people give her a wide berth, and they seem to be pro Greta, go Greta, you get 'em, girl. But she also suffers from anxiety and depression, and she has been so fearful over climate change that she spends time out of school in depression, withdrawn on medication, in fear. And so rather than giving her help and counsel, we're exploiting her. We're making her the child, the person of the year. And this is the young person who stood before the UN and said, "You have robbed me of my childhood."
You have stolen my dreams and my childhood with your empty words.
Pray tell me, how have we robbed you of your childhood? On one level, there are many people that would love to have had a childhood robbed as you have. You have fame, notoriety, you have addressed the United Nations, you've made the cover of Time magazine, and yet you've been robbed. So there's another part of me that I'm a little indignant about this so-called honor given to her, because again, in my view, she is being exploited by the left and pimped by her parents. And I didn't stutter when I said it. If she truly has these type of emotional crises in her life where she has nightmares and fears of dying because of climate change, she needs help, she needs counsel. She doesn't need to be pimped out by her parents and exploited by the left. This is child exploitation. Why is no one talking about that? And if Time magazine wants to make a child their person of the year, well, let's deal with some children who have actually had their childhoods robbed from them. Let's go to St. Jude's and look at children lying in hospital beds dying of cancer. Literally had their childhood ripped away from them. Children living on the streets because their parents are homeless. Children who live in fear because they don't know if they're going to be beaten or sex trafficked by the so-called biological beings that call themselves their parents. Children who literally eat scraps and garbage and crap and live in a hell on earth. They have had their childhood stolen from them. See, I am against the exploitation of children. I really, really am. And I understand that kids are involved in entertainment, etc., but they're supposed to have smart parents and agents who protect them, not exploit them. You know, when you see these child actors and they're giving interviews and they're making the rounds and the paparazzi, and you know what happens. You know what's going to happen. They're going to grow up, and the cuteness is going to wear off, and nobody's going to give a care what they have to say about anything. And then look at how tragic these young people when they become adults. We can talk about the two Coreys. We can talk about Lindsay Lohan. We can talk about Macaulay Culkin. The list goes on and on and on. What's going to happen to Greta, a young woman who already has problems, already has issues? What happens when that fickleness of fame, the fad of Greta, wears off? She is going to be left in more crisis, more turmoil. What is she going to be? The next documentary series for Netflix to exploit the downfall of Greta? You know, the middle-aged woman living alone and living in fear. At one time was a rock star in the environmentalist movement. Because here's the bottom line. Fossil fuel is not going away. The Green New Deal, the way that people like AOC have dreamed it up, is not going to happen in our lifetime. Not even close. And at some point, Greta is going to either figure out all of this and move on, or she is going to absolutely implode under the weight and self-pressure to make a change that's not happening. And she's going to have a breakdown. And all of you people that think it's so wonderful to promote her and put her on magazines and let her speak, your fault. So, YouTube, before you consider pulling this video because I'm picking on a child, not picking on a child, I'm picking on the platforms, the media outlets, the forums, and the parents who have pimped this child. Pimped her. Exploited her. Trafficked her. Not for sex, but a political ideology. This is This is absolutely disgusting and reprehensible. And I can't stand the exploitation of children on any level. And I don't care whether you are a conservative or an absolute progressive liberal, you ought to be outraged that a child is being used this way. I don't want to see young people who are conservative being exploited. First of all, let's be honest, some of that has to do with their parents and the ideology of how they've been brought up. Let's see where she is in 10 years. I'm going to speak from experience, and I'm going to be very transparent here. Many a pastor has launched his children into ministry as young people, as teenagers, only to have their hearts broken by the time those young people get into their 20s and decide, it ain't for me. And I don't mean just the service aspect. I don't know if I believe what you believe, Dad. There's a dose of reality. I have been involved in ministry. I have been involved with youth when it comes to not only ministry, but education. I've told you before, I've coached everything from ASO soccer to Little League to varsity basketball for nearly 20 years, varsity baseball. I've won regional titles, league championships, state titles, and I can tell you this. As much as I get enjoyment out of, in the late summer, watching the Little League World Series because you're watching kids play for the pure love of the game, what the TV networks have turned it into now, where they want to do player profiles and interview these kids. Let them have their 5 minutes of fame. That's the problem. What about these kids that they get so hyped as kids as these incredible athletes, and I've seen this in things like travel ball, that then we're telling a 10-year-old kid, your career's over. You're 10 years old. But you exploit these kids. I forget which coach it was a couple years ago would not allow his team to be interviewed by ESPN. And the network was riled about it. He wouldn't let any of his players be interviewed. And he said, my team, they're kids. You want to talk about my team and what the strategy is to try to win the Little League World Series, you talk to me. I'm the coach. I'm the adult here. Right now I'm teaching these boys, it is team ball. No one is more important than the other. We're functioning as one team. And though I think that there's a couple kids in here that have some real potential to go on, play college ball, maybe minors, and who knows beyond that, we're not going to hang that on them now. And if they crash and burn and fail, they spend the rest of their lives as broken individuals needing therapy and being one of those lifetime movie projects of the person who crashed and burned far too young. It was very wise of that coach to have that philosophy and that understanding. How about an expose on Greta's parents? What kind of people are these that pimp out their daughter this way? See, because at some point, Greta's going to figure out that she has been used by the left, pimped and profited by her parents. And then you know what she's going to have to say?
How dare you?
Exactly. Hey, that's it for this rant. Thanks so much for watching. Make sure you give us a thumbs up while we're still here. We are in process of setting up a BitChute channel. I think that's how you say it. And some other information coming. You have a wonderful weekend. We'll be back on Monday.